Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farhan Patafi. Because once again we are going to talk about the politics in this country. We are going to talk about how things are shaping up just before the elections. The first thing that is important is the caretaker setup. We know that the federal caretaker setup is now final, as well as the Sindh cabinet also, because the caretaker ministers also took oath today. That is one very important aspect, because there were speculations whether we are going to see that kind of cabinet or not. While the federal cabinet has chosen to go light with very few people, we know that the provincial government has had many cabinet members. But having said that, there were three provinces without a caretaker chief minister. That means that the outgoing incumbents were actually continuing as the acting chief ministers till the time the new chief minister comes. Now we have seen Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Justice Dost Mohammad's name has been finalized, and that is great news. But when it comes to Balochistan and Punjab, the situation still remains iffy. Having said that, there are two or three more interesting things that have happened that merit discussion. For example, all of a sudden during the caretaker setup, while there was only one man at the top, that means they didn't have the cabinet, and at that time maybe they didn't have that kind of input in the matters of electricity production and distribution. At that time, we saw return of load shedding with a vengeance. Today, in many parts of Islamabad, the federal capital, we saw light fleeing after every 5 minutes. Yes, 5 minutes, not 1 hour, not 2 hours, every 5 minutes. But let us hope that with the advent of the new caretaker setup and the caretaker cabinet, we are going to see some let up in that situation. Then there were umpteen other issues regarding the regional security as well. But it seems that the country's media knows its priorities right, and it knows where its priorities are with Reham Khan's unpublished book. And people kept on talking about it incessantly on television screens. We are going to try to talk about all these matters and more. And then we are going to talk about the quality of democracy. We are going to talk about the direction of democracy at this moment, and how political parties are going to cope with the pressures that are caused by ticket distribution and campaigning as well. In order to help us understand these issues, we are joined by Dr. Niaz in the studio. Dr. Niaz is a political economist of renown, a regular on this show, also writes a beautiful column for Daily Dawn. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. And then Zamir had another regular on this show, a senior journalist, analyst, and investigative journalist as well, is joining us on telephone. Zamir, thank you very much for your time as well. So, Dr. Niaz Mirza, let us start with you. What exactly do you think is causing the delay in the creation of two major caretaker governments?
Well, it's a very contentious decision, and no party wants to give any sort of an advantage to their opponents, even though, caretakers have a very limited role. But, just because, they have exposure, they have the bully pulpit with them, even if they say something, that can create, advantages and disadvantages for different parties. They're just taking their time, trying to see, the maximum they can get out of the situation. But again, you can say the glass is half full, half empty. Now it's more than half full.
Dr. Sir, with due respect, glass is never empty, because even if it is filled with half with water, rest is filled with oxygen and air, right?
That's true.
With due respect, at this moment, the situation is, you said that they're trying to take maximum mileage out of it.
Yeah.
The question is, how much mileage can you get out of 60 days, a window that is shrinking already?
Well, I mean, there is a very clear procedure laid down in the Constitution. This cannot go on forever. I think they'll just have 1 or 2 days more for the committees to try and reach a decision. And if that doesn't happen, then it's going to go to the Election Commission of Pakistan,
Right.
and they have 2 days. So this thing is not going to drag on forever and ever.
Yeah, but
It's a
two of the
maximum of
largest
4 or 5.
Right.
The
Two
two
of the
largest,
two largest provinces, one territorially largest, the
one
other population-wise.
population wise, yeah.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean there's nobody looking after those provinces. There's still people
Yeah,
around.
but we just saw, I just cited
Yeah.
an example of electricity outages. The moment they didn't have a minister atop the ministry, immediately we started seeing this ungodly load shedding.
Well, I don't know to how much, what extent it's because of that, but the federal cabinet is already,
Can you
in
explain?
place, and hopefully few more people will join.
Can you explain what exactly is causing this load shedding? You're a political economist.
I'm a political economist, but I'm not an energy specialist.
Yeah, but
So are you hinting that there is a political reason behind that?
no, there might not be. The only thing is that there needs to be a very strong oversight mechanism in the country.
yeah,
And when you
definitely.
don't have a democratic oversight mechanism, people can do whatever they want to.
Yeah.
And that might be the reason. It can be
No,
because of
I mean,
design.
I agree.
It can be
that
by design. It can be
it's
out
better-
of sheer ineptness.
It's better to wrap up this whole thing as soon as possible.
Right.
But we are moving towards that, and in a matter of 2 or 3 days.
What do you mean to wrap up this whole thing as soon as possible?
The transition phase, I mean, yeah,
I thought perhaps you are talking about democracy.
the appointment of the caretaker. So it's going to happen in the next 3-4 days, and then things will move on. But I think the good thing is that the uncertainty is reducing. There was huge amount of uncertainty when the Lahore High Court decision came, and then all these issues with the form. So I think that was a good decision by the Supreme Court to firmly step in on a Sunday.
Actually,
And-
everybody stood together at that.
Yeah.
On that, Election Commission of Pakistan, the Speaker National Assembly, the other
Leader of
institutions.
opposition,
Yeah.
everybody was on the same page, even ISPR. So I think that's a good thing.
Why did you bring up ISPR?
Well, I mean, they have, a certain, powers, etc. And, of course, they're important stakeholders, especially now that, the elected government is not there. So everybody seems to be on the same page. And I don't think there's hardly any chance left of, elections not happening within the 60-day period. So I think that's a very good thing.
Okay.
And gradually, things are falling in place. The schedule is there. Nominations are going on, but of course, there are still challenges left. The energy crisis, as you mentioned, then keeping violence under control, because that might flare up.
Yeah, since you mentioned ISPRs, there was something very interesting that happened yesterday during ISPR's briefing. And that was a question about Pakistan's debt, international debt, and Pakistan's sovereignty or being compromised, sovereignty being compromised. In that, there was a hint that something should be done about it. Do you think that our debt situation is that bad? That bad?
Well, I don't know why these questions keep coming up in ISPR briefings.
I know, that
they
is
have nothing to
astounding.
do with them, and
Absolutely.
people should not ask these questions, and they should not answer those questions. So, but it's not the debt situation, it's, the foreign reserve situation.
Yeah, but the
debt doesn't
question
have to
was
be.
about international debt. Let me bring in Zamir, Haider. I wasn't even sure until somebody told me in my ear that he is with us, because I couldn't hear his voice. Zamir, regarding caretaker setup, why do you think this is being delayed?
Thank you, Pitafi. I mean, my apologies for not being with you in the studio. I would have really enjoyed the conversation, but my bad on that. But I don't think
You
that
are
it's
with
like,
us, at least through your voice.
Pitafi, Pitafi, the foremost reason which I see is that this tussle between the political parties. And of course, every political party wanted an edge while appointing the caretaker setup, and particularly the chief minister, and that is why the matter has been delayed so far. And hopefully it would be resolved, as we know that the name from the KP is there, and probably in a day or two the names from the Punjab and Balochistan Assembly would also be coming up. And I think this is again, it's not something which is happening outside constitution And this is within the ambit of the constitution. So there are disagreements, and we have seen them in the past as well. So there's no big, I don't see any reason for pointing out. Of course, the delay is there, but the foremost important thing was the setup of the caretaker setup in the federal government, and it is there. And today we saw the 6 ministers have taken their oath, and another probably 4 or 5 would also be swearing in soon. And of course, the provincial governments do matter, but at this point, as you have rightly mentioned, that the Pakistan is going through really tough times, be it your international affairs or economy or security issues. And the most important thing is holding of the general elections in 2018.
Yeah, that is important. But before we talk about other issues, Zamir, tell me about the name of the caretaker chief minister for Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Justice retired Dost Mohammed. Tell me,
Yes.
what do you know about him, especially the fact that he has only retired 2 months ago. Is it usual or generally it happens that a person who has just retired can assume another office?
Yeah, no, but I think that the Constitution doesn't has any bar on that, and I think it's just a caretaker setup, and it's only limited for 60 days. So, and it's not that a permanent public office which he's going to hold for another couple of years. So I don't see that if there would have been any question against the appointment of Mr. Dost Mohammed as caretaker CMKP, we would have seen some petitions in the Supreme Court or at least in the Peshawar High Court regarding his nomination. So I don't see any reason that's why he can't be appointed as the caretaker chief minister.
Right. Let me come back to the studio. Zamir, do stay with us. Dr. Niaz Murtaza, let us talk about the federal, caretaker setup. Especially, we have seen good names. Dr. Shamshad Akhtar's name, and she is going to be the finance minister.
Yeah.
Does it mean that we are once again going to have this soul-searching exercise about economy? Because usually it is the time when we can have a group rethink, because political parties are coming up with their manifestos. They haven't been able to come up with that. And at that time, there was one report in the papers that Pakistan might have to, go back to IMF, and that was related to a briefing that was given to the caretaker prime minister.
Yeah.
Do you think that we can have that kind of moment where we have soul searching?
Yeah, certainly, what had been happening in the past was that, there was a reluctance to really share hard data and about, the real situation about, our foreign reserves and how long they are going to last and so on. The PMLN government was, of course, trying to, project a very rosy picture. Now, let's remember.
After the departure of the first finance minister of the
even
previous
then,
government,
after that, to some extent,
then we had a kind of course correction.
the message that was coming was that we don't need to go back to the IMF, and that was true till the very last day with Mr. Mufta Ismail giving the same message. And there was a reluctance to share the data. But now what will change is that the government may be more forthcoming with the real situation of how bad the situation is going to be in terms of foreign reserves.
Is it not bad that
It
somebody
is quite
else?
bad. It is quite bad, but now the government.
Dr. Shamshad Akhtar is a brilliant professional.
Yeah.
But if she has to shoulder the horrible, charge of actually coming clean to people, and the democratic government didn't do it, then somehow, in at least optics-wise, it becomes her fault, not the previous government.
Not really her fault. I mean, she's just sharing the position.
Optics-wise,
And
television
everybody
spins
would
it,
know,
right?
how the situation came about to be here. So I think that's what we need, an honest assessment from the government itself of how bad the situation is. And remember, of course, the caretakers cannot take major decisions. They can take day-to-day decisions. So, for example, the decision about, going back to the IMF, that should be left to the new government.
Right.
Of course, some discussions, meetings can start with the IMF, contingency meetings and so on. But obviously, they should not take that decision.
Right. You said that previous government wasn't that forthcoming with the data. that was needed. The question is, do we even have that kind of data available with the government itself? Because recently something very interesting happened. You know, PTI came up with this idea of 100 million jobs, and that was brilliant. Then we had a briefing by the former Prime Minister, and there we asked him about job situation. And he exactly went to the same source, that is Pakistan Bureau of Statistics, PBS, and there you see this projection that we have 7% unemployment,
Yeah,
8%
no,
unemployment. Didn't
see,
have a number.
it varies from the statistics to statistics. The job data for a country like Pakistan, it's very difficult to have accurate figures because the informal economy is so large, and so many people are underemployed.
So you
So
extrapolate.
the employment data is never very accurate in countries like Pakistan. But when you are talking about your cash
Reserves.
flows, reserve flows, how much money you are going to need for imports, for repaying your debt, etc. Obviously, that's all hard data, and that's much easier to be accurate about.
Right.
And it's that kind of data that hopefully the government will now share with the public, so there's a better idea of what the situation is.
It is quite interesting. Zamir, Haider, you have been a reporter your entire life. Tell me, when you were reporting, did you have the access to the right kind of data in this country? Because usually, at least my impression is that we don't have that kind of records. We don't maintain that kind of information.
Well, Pitafi, it varies. Like, yes, we used to get, credible data. Or most of the times we used to get credible data, and we used to get them, kind of certified by other sources as well. If the state bank data is there, then we will try to get it, confirmed from the World Bank, because most of the IMF officials and the permanent representative here from his office, and from other various sources as well. But my point is that other day the caretaker prime minister was briefed on the state of economy in the country, and it was reported in a very reputable newspaper by a very a reputable journalist. And he said the government officials, the officials of the finance ministry, said that the outgoing government has actually ruined the Pakistan economy. And today, even today, I didn't see any contradiction from any side coming against that story. So my point is that when we are faced with this, when the media was talking about this very thing, that the previous government has actually ruined the Pakistan's economy, the debt situation you have mentioned, it's it's almost touching $1 trillion. So it's something which is a very serious issue, and I believe that the caretaker setup would not be able to address all these issues. Of course, they can set some momentum for the coming, democratic setup to pursue on. But
Right.
other than that, they won't be able to take any policy decision. They would not be able to sign an agreement with the IMF.
No,
They can only start the
they can take
negotiations.
policy decisions, but they cannot do anything that has an effect beyond the limit of 2 months. That is 60 days.
Yes,
So,
yes, and when you talk about the issues and that come under the economy, I don't see any short-term measure or short-term policy which can be implemented in 2 months, and that can bear results as well. So
yeah.
when you talk about dealing with the international donor agencies like international financial institutions, then there is it's always a long-term process, and wherever you decide a facility with any of the international financial institution, it has a period of 3 to 5 years or 10 years or something like that. So that is why I said they cannot have a policy decision on that kind of a matter. But of course, for the short-term things, primarily I believe that they can take a policy decision that this much of amount should be released for holding of the election, or this much of amount should be released for the security issue if some God
Even
forbid some
Zamir, even
serious
those
security concern
decisions were
arises.
made by the previous government. even those decisions were made by the previous government and a bill was passed. We know it because the ECP actually demanded or suggested that this much cost will be there. So that was also approved in the along with the treasury bill. Well, let us come back to the other issues. We have such serious issues in this country, right? And we should be talking about these matters because they are matters of life and death, survival. Then there's the issue of water, because India seems to keep bullying Pakistan all the time. Sadly, it seems that our media's priority,
Farooq,
right?
Farooq,
Yeah,
Farooq, can you hear me?
yeah. Now I can, but I was actually coming up with another question. But go ahead.
No, no, you actually said that but there are other very serious and very important issues that need to be discussed, and I hope
Right.
that you are not referring to Reham Khan's book.
Yeah, well, let me finish my question and then you'll know where I'm going actually. Right. Dr. Saab, the question is, we have such important issues that we should be discussing, right? The, but our media keeps on talking about Reham's book that hasn't even been published. We don't know what exactly is going on there. What is wrong with us?
Well, I mean, this is not a new problem. This has been going on. I mean, if you look, flip channels, the type of issues. I remember on that day that the FATA bill was passed, and then the caretaker prime minister was named, and the whole focus on that day was on the book that the former ISI chief had published. So if you look at
At
those three
least that
things,
was a book that you could see in a
but
physical form.
FATA reform, that's such
Yeah.
a momentous day,
Yeah.
for Pakistan, for FATA people, and there was hardly a program on FATA reforms, and everything was about, the book, and frankly, I don't see anything wrong with the book, but those are our priorities, and to some extent, I guess you also have to, blame the audiences because, people, the journalists go for the topics that they think will sell within the
Right.
public. So it's a,
And
a
I'm
vicious
going to come
circle.
back to you, sir. I'm told that Qamar Zaman Kaira Sahab, a senior leader of Pakistan People's Party, joins us on telephone. Kaira Sahab, thank you very much, sir, for your time.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Kaira Sahab, let us talk about the election environment. Are you satisfied with the arrangements for the elections and whatever is happening so far?
Look, the election process is on, and everyone looks determined. And government of the day, prime minister, the judges, Supreme Court, the election commission, everyone is saying that they are committed to hold timely and impartial elections. There was a chaos when the issue of nomination papers, the form, when it was upheld by the Lahore High Court to change the forms, there was a shadow of doubt that the election may suffer and that may cause a delay in the election. But after the Supreme Court verdict and suspension of the High Court order, it has clarified that even though that case is under hearing and tomorrow there's case that case is fixed for hearing in Supreme Court. But there are many other things as far as doubts are concerned. And I think in our society, the doubts and suspicions are very much there. People are used to it. We are used to have gossips and doubts. There are certain reasons for that as well. But there are doubts because the delimitation issue is still pending. The law of delimitation has been violated by the Election Commission. That has been challenged in the High Court. That case may go to the Supreme Court. And some very senior lawyers are of the opinion that if the case goes to Supreme Court on that basic law, that is equality of the population or disparity of the population, there are some judgments of the Supreme Court, full court or the larger bench. There are judgments where the Supreme Court has upheld that the variation in population in different constituencies should not be that much as is practiced in the present delimitation. That is a serious issue. MQM has raised a very serious issue of population of Karachi. I have heard that they are also going to Supreme Court. The other things are there are the sitting even today. The sitting chief minister of KPK has written a letter to the election commission that the election should be postponed for certain time, and FATA should be the delimitation process in FATA should be completed, and the election should be in FATA should be held with Pakistan, with the rest of the Pakistan. So these are some doubts, but
Kaira
there
sahab,
are
that is true.
clear-cut directions and instructions and commitment of the courts, of the government.
Regarding the commitment, that might be there, sir, and these circumstantial conspiracies or conspiracies of circumstances might continue. But comparing to 2013, when you were taking part in the elections and there was an open threat, a physical threat of violence against your party, at that time there was huge problem in your party is campaigning. Do you think that this election gives you better opportunity to reach out to the people of Pakistan?
Yes. The overall environment in Pakistan, the violence and the terrorism situation is much better than 2013. But even today, there are certain groups who are raising certain voices. The anger and the hatred speeches are very much there. We may see some alliances or some forces, extremist forces contesting elections on political basis, but their slogans and their target will be religious extremism. That may cause a tension in the society. Otherwise, the interior minister has been attacked. Even these days on such issues, that kind of incident may happen, and that will be a big danger to the electoral process.
Right. Qamar, Zaman, Kaira sahab, thank you very much, sir, for your time. Thank you very much for being with us. Let me go to Zamir Haider now. Zamir, the same question that I put to Dr. Saab here. Regarding our priorities, we seem to be worried more about Reham's book, which hasn't been published yet. And we are not talking about policy at this moment, on media at least.
Qatafi, there are 2 points. One, that yesterday I was watching a news program in which Ms. Reham Khan was herself there, and she never denied any of the contents the anchor asked her, and she said that, wait for the book, one thing. And secondly...
Why would she? It serves as an excellent teaser to her book. Even if it is not the very same content that is in the book, if I had written a book and somebody was leaking information, I would have let them.
Farooq, when she says that her book has been hacked from her computer and she didn't deny the contents and she never confirmed or denied the contents, one thing. And the second important thing is that she has actually talked about each and every segment of the society, almost. She has talked about the media, journalists, persons, anchor persons. She has talked about the politicians. She has talked about the actors. She has talked about the cricket stars. She has talked about the politicians. She has talked about, what not. She has not left anyone. So I think that is a major concern as of today, that if at all this book, whose manuscript is now being distributed on social media, one can read that, and she has not denied any of those
that is
contents.
promoting the book
And
right
my
now.
point is that, Farooq, that it has actually, it has taken this society as a storm. And that is why people are concerned, people are talking about it, and it's not a small thing.
And people are not concerned how they are going to actually put their meals on the table. They are not worried whether they have load shedding or they don't.
I know, but of course, the electronic media, the strength of electronic media, you cannot deny that, and it has actually affected each and every household. So that is why when I say that it has affected everyone, that is why the reason that I'm saying that this book has actually, come as a storm in almost every
Yeah, with due
segment of the
respect,
society.
I am not encouraged by the fact that, Zamir, you are trying to actually justify or rationalize why media spends that much time on a book that hasn't been published. Let the kid be born, and then you can say whatever you want to. At this moment, I don't see this merits that kind of attention. But, sir,
Gaurav,
does it not prove that we have this
but
tendency
I,
in the society of
I understand,
voyeurism
but
and focusing on
today's
the
major,
scandals, and that's why, Dr. Saab, we keep on actually focusing on these
okay,
matters,
okay,
and we
okay,
don't look at
but
other
then
issues.
Yeah, no,
no,
there's
Gaurav,
no
but
doubt about it. Time and time again, we've seen that. The media is more interested in sensational issues and further making them sensational. The general public, the audiences seem to like that kind of stuff more. And unfortunately, the result is that, at the end of the day, major issues that, like the water crisis that we are facing at the
Water
moment,
crisis, economy,
economy,
electricity,
energy, there's
and even war and terror.
hardly any discussion. And I think the next 6 weeks that are left, there should be discussions on these kind of issues so that the voter gets educated and they can make informed decision. But we keep on talking, and if this book comes out before the elections, I'm sure it will take 4 or 5 days of air time will be spent on those kind of issues, what's come out of the book, and then the
Yeah,
accusation
but do you think
and
that
the
that will happen? Because at this moment, it seems that the book is in a manuscript form, and it
Well,
takes a
I
few
don't know
months.
how long it's going to be out, but I read somewhere that it might be out pretty soon.
Yeah.
But again, that's a kind of issue. It's going to take time away from those more important issues.
Yeah, but Dr. Saf, with due respect, that can happen. We can talk about policy. The moment political parties start launching their manifestos.
Yeah.
So far, none of the parties has presented a manifesto.
No.
Only PTI and its Asad Umar was quite visible one day, talking about 100 million jobs and
The 100-day plan.
500 million houses being constructed. And after that, he disappeared also. We haven't seen manifesto. We haven't seen the focus on economy. We haven't seen the focus, on the matters, things that matter.
Things that matter, and unfortunately it's those kind of issues. And we can already see in the future the trivial issues that might be coming up. And I think it's up to the more serious and responsible media houses to make sure that the topic goes back to the real issues that
Are
people
there
face.
any?
Well, I mean, here and there you can see some programs that are focusing on, more important issues. So the day, this Durrani's book came out, I could still see, one or two programs on the water issue and so on. So there are a few people, who do that, and maybe they didn't get
No.
very good ratings on that day.
Yeah.
But, they still try.
Yeah, but I wasn't talking about the anchors. I know there are few who are really dedicated to such issues, and I've seen that program as well that you were mentioning. But with due respect, when it comes to the owners and their agendas, it doesn't seem to be focused at the things that matter to a common Johnny,
Yeah, exactly.
a common man on the
And
street.
there's a lot of pressure from the owners on anchors, even producers, to go for topics that will be more sensational and that might increase their ratings. And then unfortunately it goes back to the audience, what kind of messages they send back,
It
what
is
kind
because
of programs they
it is
prefer.
because serious issues are boring. It is because we don't know how to sell it to the people.
Yeah, maybe they seem too technical, and then people come back from work the whole day, they are tired, they're
So
looking for
they are
easy
looking
stuff.
for entertainment on
They're
these
looking
channels.
for entertainment. So
Wow.
you have the TV dramas, and then you have the political dramas.
Right.
So they sort of compete with
You
each
have
other.
television theaters and political theaters, right?
So yeah, but still, I think somebody has to take the responsibility and steer the topic back to the real issues.
Right. Zamir, Haider, you also are an anchor. Do you think that you will be steering, discussion back to the issues that matter?
sorry, I didn't get that.
Zamir, you are also a television anchor, a talk show host, And being that, we were just talking about the need to steer the discussion back to the issues that matter. Do you think that that is what you will be doing in coming days, or you will be sticking with more rating-driven, talk on television?
A mix of both.
Okay.
Of course,
Right.
if it is, I would again say that, Gaddafi, it's not a trivial thing that a book is coming, is coming about a person who is being tipped as the most, as the chairman, as the party leader of the second most important political party, and he's already being tipped as the future prime minister of the country. And the book is about that person, particular about that person.
So,
how can you just,
congratulations on telling
ignore
us that
book?
you are going
Of
to
course,
focus on
having said that,
one
having-
person
having-
rather than the entire
Farooq,
country.
having said
But
that,
but
having-
tell me one thing. Tell me one thing. How do you actually remedy the issue there? I mean, the book is coming. Can you stop it?
No, but of course you would try to talk about that, why this book is coming, who is after this book, who has actually managed Ms. Reham write this book. So,
Why do
these
you
are
care?
the issues. And she has
Why-
actually,
why-
talked
why
about
would you
the
care?
various political implications which that book will bring within the ranks and files of PTI and on the political arena. So I think that it's relevant as of now, since the manuscript is there and she has not denied
Okay.
any line of that.
Hang on, Zamir, here's the next question regarding the very same issue that you have raised. Recently Michael Wolff wrote a book, Fire and Fury, on Trump White House. And it was quite interesting that it was full of second person, third person speculations and his own experiences in a quite salacious manner. But it was not that popular. It didn't grab that kind of attention till the time Donald Trump didn't start talking about it or try stopping it. Now, is it not true that by talking incessantly about the very same book, you are actually building it up and helping the writer, say whatever they want to and reach as many people as possible?
Well, Tafi, first of all, Donald Trump is not going in the election. So he's already in the president's office. I don't see that you cannot. I don't see any comparison with that.
Yeah, but Michael Wolff became a millionaire.
Well, I don't know, but I will only talk about the Ms. Reham's coming book on the impact it will have on Pakistan's political scene. And it is going to affect, because as you know that how much people in Pakistan are going to read that book, which is going to be in English. So
Exactly.
they would,
How many people
create-
read books in Pakistan?
I don't want to debate on that. Of course, if I believe none, but still the people would know about what the contents of the book from the TV programs. They would know what is being written, and it would be translated by most of the people who want it to be translated in Urdu, and they want that it should go to the masses, because there is a vested interest behind this book. You cannot deny that.
Okay, but this is the problem, perhaps, and I have to come back to the studio. Dr. Zab, it seems that we have this habit of enjoying train wrecks and roadside accidents. Whenever something of that sort happens, people cluster around. They don't actually participate or help people out, but they watch. And while we can justify whatever is happening, somewhere, everybody in their heart of hearts, people want to see a discussion on this book because they want to see more of a train wreck. Otherwise, is it me, or it is really counterintuitive the way PTI has actually confronted this issue? Because by talking non-stop about the matter, you make it bigger rather than making it go away.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, whatever you're learning about the book is coming from, PTI supporters.
Yeah.
So, even before the book is out, maybe the contents will get known to everybody.
Yeah.
And, given the ferocious reaction, it seems to have made them very, very angry. So, they should play it cool and say, just ask her for evidence, because, at the end of the day, That's what matters. She can make, 1,000 allegations, but the question is whether she has solid proof or not.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just speculation and gossip. So, I think, again, the PTI, it seems it's very easy to, put it off the track and, get it into trivialities rather than focusing. So they should focus on, their 100-day plan and then immediately come out with their manifesto so that, the focus stays on, the policy issues where they claim to have an edge over the other parties. But now, they are unnecessarily getting dragged into this whole thing about the book, and the book is not even out, and so they've given it oxygen even before it came out, and then it will come out, and obviously
by
another
that
few
time
days
everybody would have actually memorized the book itself,
memorized, and
thanks
then
to
there'll
the
be a
media
discussion
coverage.
when it comes out. So I think they are unnecessarily prolonging the agony.
Okay, the question at this moment would have been that maybe this book, or whether this book actually affects the fate of Imran Khan, but I'm not going to ask that. Remember Clinton-Lewinsky affair, when that happened? The first casualty was decency. That people started talking on mainstream media about things that you don't hear being discussed on television. Now it seems to be the case with this book, or at least the kind of content that is coming from PTI. Do you think that it is going to affect decency in the country and affect it negatively further?
Well, I don't know. There have been so many accusations that have been hurled at Imran, and so far, he's proved resilient to all of them.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about Imran. I'm talking about decency.
Yeah, well,
in
of
the
course,
society.
that will be the first casualty.
It will be.
It will be the first casualty, and the discussion will really degenerate into everything imaginable and really disgusting. And some of it will even come on TV. You can be assured of
It
that.
is coming on television
Social media,
already.
of course, there'll be no bounds to it, no limit. So it's unfortunate, and that's the sorry state of affairs.
Right, and you don't think that it is going to affect Imran Khan?
Well, all I'm saying is that so far, whatever has come out against him, it hasn't affected his standing. I don't know how bad things will be in this book.
But it wasn't a collective almanac.
Yeah, but again, if it's about,
indictments.
Details about his marriage, his personal life, I don't think people will worry about that. What she needs to show is, that, he's corrupt, because that's his main selling point, that I myself am not corrupt. If she comes up with,
I don't know why
proof,
does she need to. She doesn't need to do anything of the sort. I mean, come on. You have access, and you don't write this kind of stuff. But she has the right to write whatever she wants. The only thing is that, in good conscience, a person who refused to talk about their marriage or their divorce at that time, I don't want to talk about these issues. And
for a while she had just gone quiet and stayed away from controversy, and now she's felt. Of course, she has the right to write a book. But then, she can write it from different angles, from an educative point of view, rather than going into nitty-gritty of
whatever is
gossip.
coming from PTI's side, it is quite educative.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, Zamir, Haider, when it comes to the impact of the book, are you certain that it is going to have an impact on politics of Pakistan?
Well, since Pitafi, you said that there are more important issues, but you already have given about 10-15 minutes on this topic. So my point is that if this thing is discussed...
You kept on insisting that it is an important topic, and I respected what you were saying.
Well, thank you very much. But of course, I think that if this book is and I'm sure it will be used extensively and as a hard-hitting thing against PTI by all its opponents, be it Pakistan Muslim League, Nawaz League, be it Pakistan People's Party, and they are definitely going to use this book. And it would actually have an impact. I'm sure that it will have, at least if not bigger impact, but it would definitely have an impact, because this, as far as the political contents which she has referred to in her book, as I've seen in the social media in the manuscript, which is being discussed in the social media. So I think that this thing is going to have impact on the coming elections.
And the next question, Zamir Saab, is whether it is going to have an impact on the culture of the country, the news and media culture of the country as well, and is it going to actually spoil it further?
Yes, I think so that this would actually, let's see how the society takes this book, and after that we can only decide that how it would have its impact on our culture, our society, our norms, and all these issues. But I think it will have some, because people are worried and they don't want to, talk about it. They don't want to discuss about it. So it would happen. Of course, I would not like it to be this book to be read by the kids because some it
Right,
has a tendency.
Zamir, Haider, on that note, we have to conclude the program. I have to thank you. Thank you very much for being part of the program, at least via telephone, although would have appreciated your presence in the show. But Dr. Niaz Murtaza, this seems to be the evolution or degeneracy in the entire dialogue process in the country. We start high-mindedly. We started by talking about jobs, numbers, and everything, and ended up talking about a book that hasn't even been published. But having said that, sir, how would you like to conclude? Do you see hope in coming?
Well, yeah, I'm happy that all the some of the controversies about the elections have died away. There's much more certainty, and the fact that elections are happening, and hopefully the country can make a new start. The elections should be credible. Post-poll rigging, pre-poll rigging, those are the more serious risks. So I hope everybody plays their part.
And let us hope that we see remaining caretaker governments very soon in place as well. Because if somebody is going to participate in the elections and they are still caretaker or they are acting CMs, that actually affects the quality of election. So thank you very much for being part of the program. Thank you very much for being here. Viewers, you have listened to our participants. Of course, we are moving towards elections. And it seems that all the stakeholders have agreed on one thing, that the elections will be held in time. But regarding these issues that are being discussed on television, some of these issues, when they pan out the way it seems they will pan out, have serious negative impact on the quality of culture in the society and the quality of national discourse. It is important to keep focusing on matters that actually matter. Otherwise, we can talk about everything and anything under the sun, and it will not change even a bit what we do or what we face. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching us. Take care.